Welcome to the Fabulous 50s and Beyond. I'm Jim Pollard, your co-host. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and during this month we want to talk about that. We were alarmed at the statistics that we got, and we have a very interesting story for you today. You stay tuned and we'll be right back.
And he'd say, go with what you got. Start from where you are. Give it your best shot. Keep reaching for that star. Get in the race, keep your own pace, keep moving and never stop. Just go, go with what you got.
Welcome back. I'm Jim Pollard, your co-host, with my wife Jeanetta, and today we're talking about breast cancer awareness. Since this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and as I said earlier, we were surprised at some of the numbers that we saw and the statistics that we saw. Now, none of us are great memory experts, so I'm not going to rely on you ladies to remember these stats, but it's all right if you just read them off to us, okay? But our guests today are Jamie Smith and Marlene Fraser. Jamie is with the American Cancer Society in Paducah, and Marlene is a breast cancer survivor. And it's always exciting, and so we're going to have a great show today, and I'm sure you'll be interested in it. Jeanetta?
How many women are usually affected by breast cancer?
The American Cancer Society estimates that there are 212,000, 213,000 new cases of breast cancer diagnosed among women in the United States in 2006 alone. Like I said, that's just an estimate, and approximately 41,400 of those women will die of the disease. An additional 58,000 women will be diagnosed with non-invasive breast cancer. And in Kentucky, they're estimated that 3,220 women will be diagnosed with cancer, and 620 women will die in this year from breast cancer. So as you all say, those statistics are alarming.
They really are. And I guess when we get into any type of life-threatening and terminal statistics, they do get quite alarming when you don't know what they are. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we've been blessed in our family. We've never had to deal with the C word, you know. And as far as our close family is concerned, it is great, you know, because that's the dreaded word. But today, it seems like there's so many improvements in care, prevention, and the different things that are going on. And that's what excites us, because our show is, whether you realize now, it's aimed at people 50 and older. You're a little young to be on it. We just said you could come on with her. But,
I'm special.
But it's aimed at people 50 and older, and we try to deal with situations and problems that they'll be dealing with. That's one of the things that we try to do. It's like the eye doctor said, if you live long enough, you could have a cataract. You know, that's just bottom line. So we do it. But when we talk about some of these things, you know, I guess who is at most risk for cancer?
Well, whenever you talk about age, with this show being tailored towards 50 and plus, really it is the major factor for breast cancer is age. And those women 40 and over, of course, are the ones that we look at major risk, and that's why they ask you to have your mammogram yearly starting at the age of 40. Some other factors that we have in our guidelines that you would want to look at is your weight. We find that if you're overweight, you're at greater risk. But like I said, age is probably the one most important. And then also they look at family history, maybe some hormones too that are affected in your body. But just because, say, your mom or your sister was diagnosed with cancer, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get cancer too. It is and actually most women that are diagnosed with breast cancer, they haven't had that run in their family before.
But it is something that if you've had it, then you need to carefully watch yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what is the #1 killer in cancer?
Actually, the #1 killer is lung cancer. Breast cancer falls #2 among women, but lung cancer is the #1 causing death in women.
You think, is that mostly, we think, because of smoking, or do you not have any statistics on that?
Well, I mean, of course, smoking does increase your chances for lung cancer. But I think, too, one of the reasons why it's one of the most deadly is there's been so many breakthroughs with breast cancer. And actually, the American Cancer Society just got its 40th Nobel laureate last week. And tamoxifen, which is a breast cancer treatment drug, that was developed through research by the American Cancer Society. And then also the pap smear, which helps detect cervical cancer, was also developed, and those were developed by those that have gone on to win prizes. So,
well, I am excited to see, and I'm sure it's happening in cancer, but a few weeks ago they had a piece on the national news about the different teaching universities and research universities who were forming an alliance to work together, and this was about diabetes. I mean, it was the University of Miami, and it was one in Germany, and they were from all over the world. Some of the top diabetes research universities were coming together to form an alliance to go after a cure. And because I know in the past there's been this competition. It's and you know why it's a competition. It's a competition for name, it's a competition for money, and all the things. But to see them beginning to come together to go to say, all right, our goal is not to get more money, our goal is to defeat this disease. And I'm sure that's happening in cancer research also, isn't it?
it is. The American Cancer Society reviews yearly different grants that they'll give out to researchers. We actually have Dr. Diamond, he's at UK. This past year he actually visited our area and told us about his research. But the American Cancer Society looks for young researchers that are looking for the breakthrough drugs, that something that hasn't been researched yet and developed. And then these are how we see later on that they actually do find the breakthrough medicine that will help.
I wonder why, and you may not, probably don't know this, but why is it that the older a woman gets, the more her chances are of having breast cancer?
You know, I mean, I don't think anybody really knows for sure
it's
yet.
just one of those things.
Cancer is so different in everybody. And I think one thing that we learned from the researcher while he was here, that it's just one cell. Each cell in your body has a designated job it's supposed to do. And basically what cancer is that one cell forgets his job and he decides that he's going to do a different job. And then that cell then changes the jobs of other cells, and that's how the tumor will grow inside your body. It's that cell that's forgot his appropriate job function.
Well, that's what I was seeing somewhere not too long ago. They were talking about how that maybe there's research to go in and correct that cell back.
That's what the research is trying to do. But like I said, each cancer is so different, and even with breast cancer, you know, Marlene's going to tell us her story, but her story is different from several other breast cancer survivors just because the cancer is so different, and that's why it's hard to actually just come up with one magic pill that's going to cure cancer. Each cancer is different. And
I know that cancer is really no respecter of age either, is it?
Not at all.
No. And unfortunately, you see at our relays, we honor our survivors, and you know, we see 6-month-olds that are survivors that have battled it from some, you know, just shortly after birth, and then we have our survivors that are, you know, 90 and 100, which we love that, and we hope that, you know, we get more and more survivors each year.
I know when we get to our age, it's also tough, but it's hard to see the children. You know, and what they go through with it. One of the organizations that I belong to is called sanoamerica.org, and the work that they do is with terminally ill children in hospice. Because like we were saying earlier, you know, I have Christmas year-round, and some kids, that's going to be their Christmas. It might be in July, it might be August, but we like to work with them in that way too, and it's very, you know, it's hard to watch children suffer, you know, but it happens. Marlene, tell us a little bit about your story.
I was one of those that had my regular mammogram. Everything came back fine, but then I was diagnosed with breast cancer in February of 1989 following the discovery of a lump that I found through self-exam. You know, I contacted my doctor. He told me my mammogram looked fine, so I went for a second opinion. Of course, before I got there, he had my mammogram sent to him, and he said, you know, do you have a problem? Your mammogram looks fine. And so at this point, I just more or less said, forget the picture and look at the lump. You know, this was what was bothering me. He looked at it and told me he didn't think it was anything, but he was willing to take it out for two reasons. One, it was bothering me, and two, because of the size of it. Of course, he sent it off for biopsy. And the surprising thing is it was because of him that we found what we did. The lump itself was benign, but the surrounding tissue, that when he got in there, he didn't think it looked right. So he took some samples of the surrounding tissue and sent them off also, and they were filled with microscopic cancer cells. Mm. So this kind of scared us. He told me that the only way we could be sure of getting all of it was through a radical mastectomy. So I had the radical mastectomy and underwent 6 months of chemotherapy to prevent any reoccurrence. There have been numerous strides in the treatment of cancer since then. I've been cancer-free now for 17 years. But the ones today, there's not many that have to go through the radical mastectomy. You know, they do lumpectomy, or they do the chemo right to the spot, or, you know, I mean, it's just, even the chemo is so much better. You know, you're not guaranteed that you'll lose your hair and have all the other side effects nowadays, but I just am so thankful that they caught it when we did. And
that sounds like an unusual case, that the
Right.
spot that you're looking at would not be cancerous, but around it.
Right. There are different reasons why those lumps form, you know, and this happened to be one that was not made up of any consistency that would have, you know, been alerted on the mammogram, because there wasn't an unknown figure in there, and the others obviously at that point weren't large enough to show up, you know, because they make the mammogram of the entire breast and the surrounding tissue.
Well, now you had mammograms, but let me ask both of you a question. Neither one of you answer it. Do you have any statistics on why women don't have them? Because now, they can get them for free at a certain point now, can't
Right, but I think that it's an education
Right.
reason, that women aren't educated enough on why the importance of a mammogram is, and then some of them just say, I don't have insurance, and they don't realize that they can go to the health departments, that there is state funding through the health departments where they can receive free cervical exams and mammograms.
Mm. Do you think fear enters into it?
We see that too, and denial. They don't want to acknowledge maybe that they find a lump.
I was on a phone a friend detail once, trying to get people to notify their friends to have mammograms, and one lady that was recruited to make calls, she said, I can't do it, you know, because she said, I've never had a mammogram. And she was older than I was at the time, you know, and she felt like she had made it this long that she wasn't going to change then, you know. So it was kind of a...
Yeah, for you women, it's kind of like what the doctor told me, though. If you live long enough, you go get a cataract, you know.
Well, now, you're not always going to get cancer just because you
well, I
live
guess that's true,
No.
but the chances were greater.
The
is what
chances
you-
are
Well,
greater
yes,
the longer
yes,
they
they
go
are
to
greater,
take
right,
it, right.
yes.
Yeah.
And actually, statistics show that 1 in 3 women will get cancer. So looking at the table of us 3 ladies, you know.
I'm the one.
Yeah. And then in men, it's 1 in 2 men will actually
Yeah.
get cancer.
Wow.
So
1 in 2?
1 in 2.
Whoa.
So it's higher,
Mm-hmm.
the chance that men will get cancer.
Right.
Now, do men have breast cancer?
Yes.
They do.
Yeah, I had heard that.
The statistics lower, of course, for men, but it's estimated that 1,720 men will be diagnosed this year with breast cancer. And but like I said, it's very, very low. It's actually less than 1% of the breast cancer diagnoses are men.
Okay, you asked a question that perked up my ears, but we got to take a break now. In a good place. But you stay tuned, and we'll be right back as we discuss Breast Cancer Awareness Month more with our guests.
Someday, I'll be a ballerina, just like them. And this will be my stage, where I twirl and float and swirl for all the people looking at me. Someday, this won't just be my wish. Someday, I won't be sick.
Welcome back. Today we're talking about Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we have someone from the local chapter, Paducah chapter of American Cancer Society, and a survivor, along with my wife Jeanetta, who is co-host, and this has gotten into some real interesting statistics, but some real interesting information too. And one of the things that we want to talk about is what is a mammogram?
Well, a mammogram is just simply a low-dose x-ray procedure that a woman goes through that will show what's actually inside the breast. And they have different kinds now. I think before, most women are familiar with the film mammographies that they have, but now they're coming out with digital mammographies, which is it's a clear plate, and the breast is still put on the tray, and it's still pressed down to examine the breast, but it comes out in a digital where it's much clearer than the film. So that's helped to detect a lot of breast cancers now.
Well, I understand that in the past it was pretty painful, but I understand this has improved a lot. I mean, that's what I'm hearing. Is that right?
I mean, I can't speak from experience because I haven't had one yet, but you might be able to.
I can speak for experience. The first ones were very painful. First of all, they were on a metal plate,
Yeah.
you know, and that's just not a part of your body that you like
Right.
to see flattened out like
Right.
a pancake, you know.
Well, you had one, what, year and a half, 2 years ago?
But now the new and improved version, I don't think are quite as.
Yeah.
They're still not my favorite. You
Yeah,
know.
well, I can understand that.
But it's so important.
Hospital gowns aren't my favorite thing either.
But I tell them when I go in for mammograms now, I can get it done in half the time, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's because, and I guess, you know, that's one of the most important things that a woman can do, isn't it?
Well, when should you start having mammograms, and how often should you have them? And
It's yearly at the age of 40, and then if you have cancer in your family, we recommend, especially breast cancer, if your mom has it, or a grandmother, or an aunt, sister, you would want to maybe start at 30, a little bit younger, just to do the preventive.
I noticed they had some ladies on TV this morning on National, and this lady had it, her mother had it, and she had her daughter, and said, you know, they'll start her early
Right.
As a result of that. Yeah.
And it's important, too, for women to realize that they don't have to wait till they're 40 to start doing even self-breast exams. And that should start in your 20s. I know a lot of times I was educated on it in college. I started at 18. And you just do I do those, you do them monthly is what I do, and you do it around your menstrual cycle, of course. But, I mean, it's very, very important to do that, because usually it's the women that find the unusualness in their breast, and it's very important to be comfortable with yourself and to know how your breast feels. And then if you find any abnormalities, you need to report that to your doctor.
Now, one of the things they brought out that we haven't talked about that I bet you've got at your office, said there's some kind of a card that teaches them how to do it. Because this lady said she had been somewhere with a friend of hers, said she'd never done a breast exam.
Right.
She was late 40s, and her friend gave her the card, so she went home and in the shower did it and found a lump. See, that was the thing. She found it. And I got tickled. She says, and he felt it too. And the announcer said, "That's her husband."
Yeah.
We have those that, you know, they hang in the shower. You know, it's kind of like a door hanger.
Oh, it is.
And it's a plastic card, and we'll give you step by step. And I make sure that I have 2 daughters.
Now they can get those, and give us your address where they can get those.
Our office is at 3140 Parissa Drive. That's on Jackson Street. right by the Stakeout and Banterra Bank. We sit directly behind the Banterra Bank in a gray building. And we don't actually have the shower cards, but we do have cards there that show you how to do the self-breast exams. And also, too, what's one major thing is important is whenever you go to your gynecologist and you have your regular yearly exam, is to make sure, too, that your physician does a breast exam on you. And that's a clinical breast exam is what that's called. And we recommend that every 1 to 3 years. And you can ask your doctor about that. My doctor does it every time I go in for an exam.
Where can they get the shower cards?
I think the American Cancer Society
Probably go on the website?
Mm-hmm.
On the website? Yeah.
We had a friend who had what you were talking about. Her sister had breast cancer, and she wanted to have a mammogram done. Insurance company said they wouldn't pay for it because she was not 40, but she insisted on getting one, and fortunately for her, it was a good thing that she went ahead and had it because she did have breast cancer.
If the doctors will write an order now and show that there is the family history, then most insurance companies will cover it.
Yeah, this was several years ago.
Well, you know, it's so much, well, yeah, a few years anyway. But it's so important, you know, and sometimes you just can't let insurance
And that's what I was
stand in your way.
Last month, we had several ambassadors go to Washington, D.C. to actually advocate with the legislators for breast and cervical cancer, to increase state funding, and also that's to help push with the insurance and payments. And that's where it came along with the insurance, being able to pay for those. Like she said, if it's a medical need that the doctor can prove it with family history, then it will be paid for.
This is another point, but at the time of my mastectomy, insurance did not cover reconstruction. It was considered cosmetic, not functional, and that's just been in the last few years that the insurance companies now will cover the reconstruction process.
I was thinking about a statement. I started to make a statement, and I thought about, you know, that we have some friends our age. Well, my age is 69, so I'm not young anymore. But she's had both breast removed, radical mastectomy, and started very young. She was very young when she had her first one, and then had her second one later on. But she's like you, just as active as she can be, and just jokes about it and goes on and carries on. And some of our best friends is what I
was say. You either have to accept it as a part of life and go on, or go into hiding.
And that's part of recovery, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, you know,
that's where the counseling and the peer things come in. Well, do they always find cancer? I mean, do mammograms always show if? Well, you already answered that question, didn't you?
No,
yes, because you said they did not. It did not detect yours.
They get the majority of them, but there's I think statistics will show 10 to 20% of them. But that's why that it's so important for you to know your own body.
Right.
You'll be the first one to recognize something that you don't remember was there, and that was what I did. You know, and it was like an oblong shape. You know, and I thought, this has never been there before.
Yeah. Well, the clock is ticking down, and we've still got some time. But there's one thing that we really wanted to cover, and that's the wig room.
Okay. The American Cancer Society provides several services here in the area. That the services are provided through money that we raise through Relay for Life. The wig room is one that we provide here. And if you walk into our office, we have a room that's just full of wigs of every color, every style that you could possibly think of. We actually got some wigs in last week that were the real hair instead of the synthetic. But that is free to anybody going through treatment, currently undergoing treatment. We actually have wigs for men as well. We have turbans in there too that women might wear instead of always wearing a wig. They can wear a turban around the house, and we provide those free of charge. We also provide a service called Look Good, Feel Better, and that's where we teach women how to put makeup on correctly while they're going through treatment so that they don't cause infections. We do those monthly. Currently, those are held at Western Baptist Hospital, and it's the 4th Monday of every month. Next year, we're going to have a new schedule for that. And we're going to alternate those between day and nights.
You brought up something that I want to expound on. Makeup creating infections?
Yes. Unfortunately, whenever you go through treatment, your immune system is pretty much depleted. And we teach women that they really need to be careful a hand sanitizer, especially the women with grandchildren, because they love to hug the grandbabies. They need to make sure that the grandbabies' hands are clean and that yours are clean. But with Q-tips, apply the makeup with Q-tips or sponges that can be thrown away, so that one day maybe you may have been around something that you put the makeup on, but then you throw that sponge or applicator away so that you don't use it the next day to cause the infection to spread.
Go ahead.
I think it's just great that y'all have those wigs and things, because it's very, it's just kind of awful for a woman to lose her hair, isn't it?
Right.
It's very
Well,
traumatic.
and wigs can be very expensive, and that's a cost that, you know, women shouldn't have to incur while they're going through treatment. So to be able to get one for free takes a heavy burden off the female and the family as well.
We, you know, we've talked about a lot of things, and you need to give them your address and telephone number again so that they know how to.
Our address again is 3140 Parissa Drive, and then our phone number, local number, our office hours are 8:30 to 4:30, 444-0469. And then if you can call 1-800-ACS-2345, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and there's someone there that will answer the phone that can send a request to us to help you. But there's always someone for you to talk to, or you can go online to www.cancer.org and
Now,
find a ton of
this
information.
800 number, is that like a helpline also? I mean,
Right.
there's somebody that just
It's our national
needs somebody to
cancer
talk
line.
to?
Right.
Because they can be very beneficial sometimes too.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your Reach to Recovery.
So say we also have a program that's geared toward people who have been through this situation. So it's a one-on-one, kind of like a peer tutoring or a peer support group. Breast cancer survivors are trained in the concerns that others are going to experience, but it lets them know that I've survived it, you know, and that's probably why I decided to join the group when I was invited, because I had a breast cancer survivor that it never seemed, when I was at my lowest point, I would receive a card or a call from this one. And so it takes a person who has been there to kind of relate, and they want to know, you know, did you feel like this, and did this happen to you, and so on. So it's just a really good program for the Reach to the Recovery, you know, while they're going through that.
Because it gives them hope, because they know
Right.
that if you survive, then they can survive.
Right, I'm living proof.
Right.
Well, ladies, we appreciate y'all being with us today. A lot of good information for our audience out there, and it's important that they pay attention to some of this. But we want to remind you that we're here every week, The Fabulous 50s and Beyond. Our website is thefabulous50sandbeyond.net. And Jeanetta, give them our address.
P.O. Box 7, Bowes, Kentucky 42027.
Remember, use it or lose it.
Can't see as well as I used to. Can't run as far or as fast. Sometimes I think that the old me is becoming